It's been a while since I did a commentary, so I figured that this time I go after a Power Rangers reviewer that might have his nostalgia goggles on too tight. Now, a while back, I saw some of the older Power Rangers seasons on Netflix, as well as the newest one, Super MegaForce, which Mr. Weenie Productions has done episodic reviews of. The problem that I have with some of these reviews is that if you didn't watch the episode he's reviewing, his review isn't that bad, but if you did see it, you'll probably notice some holes in his arguments. For this commentary, I'll cover his In the Driver's Seat review because as a fan of RPM and Super MegaForce, I don't think he did a good job with this one.
Super MegaForce. What else is there to say? This episode is called In the Driver's Seat. It starts off in the command center, and Gosei is telling the Rangers that they've picked up an emergency signal from Corinth, and that a wormhole has appeared in the sky. Then he goes to say that if they leave now, Earth will be without its defenders, because we didn't just see Jaden and Casey in previous episodes.
Yes, we did see them, but unmorphed. For all we know, they lost their powers after stopping their big bads, or maybe they see no reason to use their powers anymore, since in those previous episodes they were either teaching others, or just relaxing. Anyways, I'm skipping ahead because Mr. Weenie brings up a complaint about how they could have had multiple Rangers in the past fighting Professor Cog and make it into a three-parter. Ignoring the fact that this show focuses on the Megaforce Rangers, as well as the fact that the Sentai only had the past Rangers as cameos, I don't have much to complain about here. Except...
Oh right, this is Saban. That would be way too creative. If it ain't cheap, it's not worth the leap. Hashtag be cheap.
Oh boy! First off, of course it's cheap. Every Power Rangers season has always taken the costume fight scenes from the Sentai the season is based off of and add footage with English-speaking actors to fill up the rest of the episode. This has been done since Mighty Morphin. As for your crossover idea, as much as I would like to see it too, I understand why they couldn't do that. Ignoring the cost that they already have to pay in order to film the show, they would also have to fly the old actors in, get new fight scenes filmed, pay the actors, fly them out, etc. Hell, Forever Red, the crossover you mentioned at an earlier point, ran out of money during production, and they had to get help from another company to finish it. After something like that, I can see why they wouldn't want to do another non-Sentai fight like that, since it nearly cost them with Forever Red. You seriously want to call them cheap because of that? Give me a freaking break. But even then, there's also this issue. I find it very hypocritical of you to call them cheap when you just use pictures of the episode to make your point. It really comes off as rushed. Now, I know some of you might argue that I'm doing the same, but here's the difference. I'm not the one calling a professional company cheap in a review with stilted pictures and little editing.
The Rangers head on to Corinth, and it looks nothing like Corinth at all. There's no sign of Colonel Mason Truman, and the Eagle Squad is nowhere to be found.
It was stated earlier in the episode that Corinth was in peace for a long time. Considering how technologically advanced Corinth was in RPM before the end of the Venjix War, it's not impossible to believe that the city would have gotten bigger after Venjix was defeated. Even then, this looks more like a place where they store the Carzords, not the actual city. If that's the case, then of course we wouldn't see the RPM characters. Why would they be in this storage place?
All they find is this abandoned racetrack, and this Zord called the Turbo Falcon. And instead of going after it, we hear some very awful dialogue from the Rangers. I am not kidding. Hey, Turbo Falcon, stop! You're, going over the speed limit. Don't be afraid. We're your friends. And it goes on and on and on. Rather than do something epic with the past Rangers, they instead show the current Rangers being annoying as all hell. I know they're trying to be funny, but at a time like this, it just seems out of place, in my opinion.
Hey, Turbo Falcon! Stop! You're, going over the speed limit!
That's your big idea?
This is a character trait Jake has always had. This is nothing new. As for the other Rangers, they were trying to get the Zord back through that method because they thought it would work, not because of comedy reasons.
And apparently, this Turbo Falcon Zord was locked away because it couldn't be controlled. Talk about a lame backstory for a Zord. In the season of RPM, There wasn't a single Zord that Dr. K couldn't control, but yet this Turbo Falcon is supposed to be uncontrollable? Give me a break.
Since this sword was never mentioned once in RPM, it's very likely that this sword was created after Venjix was defeated. In that case, odds are someone else made it, since in the ending of RPM...
Ziggy and I are starting a school for kids. Ziggy.
Dr. K probably never made the Turbo Falcon Zord, so that's why this one probably couldn't be controlled.
And back on Earth, the Armada had a face-off with Professor Cog and the Grinders, but it wasn't anything special. It was just generic.
Any ideas on how to make it better? No? Okay, I mean, what are you, a reviewer?
Anyway, the Rangers return, they go legendary RPM, fighting off the X-Borgs, Grinders, and Professor Cog. He grows right away. The Rangers summon their Zords, and what happens next? You guessed it. The Rangers combine with the Turbo Falcon to form the legendary RPM Megazord, and they earn themselves another super mega win.
What's wrong with that? You say that as if it's a bad thing, but you don't explain why. You know what, I'm gonna cut it off there. My main issue with your review, aside from the cheap comment, is how you either ignored certain details of the episode, or how vague you were with your criticisms towards the show. And it's not really needed. This review is only 3 minutes. I think you can afford to explain a little bit. Look, it's fine that you don't like Super MegaForce. I just feel like this review needed a little bit more fine-tuning with your points, and maybe even editing. I know it's because of copyright, but in that case, I'd be careful calling Saban cheap, because people might look at you and say, "You're one to talk." That's all I gotta say, so take care.